Hi, I'm Justin from Tesseract.art. We're on a mission to create what we believe to be the world's first artist that can create artwork in more than 3 dimensions. Sounds like a crazy idea, I know, but we're not the first to be fascinated by the 4th dimension and beyond. In fact, our work is a modern-day extension of what has captured the imagination of many artists, Salvador Dali being perhaps the most famous. Dali painted the masterpiece Corpus Hypercubus in 1954. It is rated as one of his most popular and recognizable paintings, right after the melted clocks. While the deformed clocks are often considered statements about space-time, the crucifixion, as it was originally called, makes a statement about 4-dimensional space, and soon the painting became known by its geometric name. The painting depicts a classical pose of Christ superimposed on a mathematical representation of the 4th dimension in the form of an unfolded net of a tesseract, also known as a hypercube. The unfolding of a 4-dimensional tesseract into 8 cubes is analogous to unfolding the sides of a 3D cube into 6 squares. As far back as 1975, Dali would often meet with mathematicians whose work was understanding geometry in 4 dimensions and beyond. Thomas Banchoff from Brown University, famous for his early computer-generated animations of 4-dimensional objects projected into 3 space, met and advised him regularly. Most all of Dali's later works were obsessed with geometries in multidimensional space. Dali aspired to create art in 4 dimensions, but for obvious practical reasons never achieved this goal. However, in today's modern world with advancements in artificial intelligence and mathematical processing, we can readily perform the necessary computations to sculpt in multidimensional space and project back into 3 space and 2 space. It's not a very easy concept to visualize. Similar to these 2D shadows produced from the illumination of these 3D objects, our process is similar. From our multidimensional analysis, we can cast shadows, or in other words, project into 3 dimensions as a sculpture, or 2 dimensions as a painting, making the artwork tangible in both digital and physical forms for humans to see and interpret. Our Tesseract.art system can be best described as a transfer function that takes multiple inputs and generates multidimensional art as an output. The artwork can then be projected into a smaller number of dimensions, just like a human artist takes their experience of the world around them as input to their creative process in order to produce a painting or sculpture. Along with my collaborator Richard, we've been working on the concept for a couple years, and we thought long and hard about what the input should be for Tessa, our Tesseract artist. When we thought about what a human artist does for inspiration, they use their understanding of the world through their collective experience. And also in many cases, artists listen to music for inspiration while creating. For example, American modern artist Georgia O'Keeffe is well known for her large-scale cropped flower paintings and cityscapes, but she too understood that art had an ability to evoke emotion in the same fashion that music did. For a time, O'Keeffe was occupied with the idea that music could be translated into something for the eye. This led to the creation of several abstract works inspired by music, including Music, Pink and Blue, No. 2, 1918, and Blue and Green Music, 1919 to 1921. And so for our first implementation of Tessa, we chose to build a system that consumes music as an input into our neural network mind. We also chose to paint instead of sculpt, since the sculpting process is much longer and more difficult to physically manage. We also wanted Tessa to be able to paint together in a live collaboration with musicians as a performance, so the artwork needs to be completed within a reasonable time frame, the same amount of time that the musicians are performing. And so, we decided that Tessa, in her first instance, shall be a generative artist, an artificially intelligent agent that listens to live music performance and paints what it hears in real time, using a robot arm as an actuator. Our aspiration is to create a more general system, which could use other inputs to generate artwork outputs. As part of our mission, we want to allow anyone in the world to create art, even those with either physical or mental disabilities, through the use of bioinformatics in the form of wearable EEG headsets or similar technology that will allow us to develop machine learning models to generate brushstrokes. But first, let's get back to the music. Music provides us with a rich source of learning material across many dimensions, and so we prepared for our first proof of concept development. Our project is a multidisciplinary collaboration of creativity and technology, combining robotics, artificial intelligence, music, and the visual arts. This has considerable challenges, particularly as music is a temporal art form moving through time, while paintings are a fixed medium, creating an issue between short-term art style and the overall generation of an artwork. For our first proof of concept, we started with a small desktop project robot that could paint on an A4 size piece of art paper. Richard is in Sydney and I'm in Singapore, so we both got the same robot, the same 3D printer, and the same hardware setup to be able to collaborate together remotely. We have also received advice and support from the technical and art industries in both Australia and Singapore. With special thanks to Stephen Paddo Patterson, CEO of Derivan Art Supplies and makers of the world-famous Matisse acrylic art paints in Sydney, Australia, we've been working with Paddo to select paints with the right viscosity, brushes that the robot can control, and all of the advice and recommendations we needed to get started with programming brushstrokes and mimicking painting techniques. There are a lot of challenges to get through physically. The robot needs to be able to pick up and put down brushes. The paper can't move while we're painting, and something needs to be done to get more paint on the brush. We went through many iterations, figuring out how the robot could best hold the brushes, how the paper and the robot could stay aligned, and how the brushes could be best dipped into different colors of paint. Through many iterations of design and many hours of 3D printing later, we were ready for our first live performance with a musician. Richard and I did this together in a recording studio located at Macquarie University in North Sydney. Conveniently, Richard's wife Anna is an accomplished improvisational violinist, and she joined us for the collaborative performance. Our focus for the proof of concept was on a collaborative creation, where the final artwork was directly inspired by Anna's live performance, and where Anna's improvisation also inspired what the robot painted. The painting canvas has preset coordinates locked into place through the use of a 3D printed frame. In this way, the robot has a set knowledge of the X and Y boundaries of the canvas, as well as the position of each paintbrush. We modified the brushes by attaching 3D printed caps that allowed for the brushes to sit in the paint containers vertically at the desired height to dip into the paint below. To paint each gesture, the robot moves into position and then modifies the Z or the vertical position of the arm. For this prototype version, we used the basic colors of red, blue, yellow, and green, with the robot able to alter between colors at any time. Additionally, the robot automatically applies more paint to the brush after 3 brushstrokes. The system is driven by the audio from the violin, with strokes matching the beginning and ending of phrases. The audio first goes into a program that analyzes the pitches, the onsets and offsets to measure the note lengths, and the density of notes per 5-second intervals. These values are then used to both choose the next stroke and choose when to start a new stroke. The stroke itself is generated in a Python script that sends the stroke to the robot arm through a serial communication interface. In our prototype recording, a custom-built audio interface was also used to expand the sonic possibilities of the solo acoustic violin. The audio processing was structured to complement the physical gestures of the robot arm and to emphasize the use of different colors and the layering of strokes on the canvas. From our perspective, the overall experience felt like a group improvisation, with 3 distinct performers: the robotic painting arm with the canvas as its instrument, the solo violinist improviser, and the audio processing. Performing with 2 inanimate partners proved surprisingly rewarding and somewhat challenging for Anna. After playing through multiple iterations of the work, the timing of the performer's gestures in response to the robotic arm's movement became more natural. Initially, all the deliberate synchronization between the robotic arm and the violinist appeared somewhat forced, but after a period of extensive playing, both the music and gestures came together into one cohesive, vibrant entity. Receiving live visual feedback in the form of a painting affected the harmonic and rhythmic palette of the improvisation, and the initial long reflective strokes and sounds allowed for a slow buildup of rhythmic and harmonic complexities. On the other hand, the use of bright primary colors on the canvas with their vital mixes led to the choice of consonant harmonies and syncopated double-time rhythmic passages, leading to the robot inspiring changes in music as the painting itself was generated by the music. While the proof of concept was successful, there are many possible expansions and improvements to pursue. In the future, using a higher quality robot arm with better gripper control would allow many more stroke types and subtle variations in the application of the brush itself, which was missing from this version. We believe the relationship between music, long-term form, and painting over time also requires further research. Ultimately, we believe the work shows significant future potential for cross-modal interaction between AI agents and human collaborators, and opportunities to incorporate creative robots into the creation of new styles of creativity. From this proof of concept, we continued our work towards algorithm development and plans for working with a more advanced robot arm, which is the subject of our next segment. Until next time, thanks for joining us on this journey.